My Mopar parts dealer had a sale and I bought a brand new set of Gen 5 Viper front calipers for the 73 Challenger build. They look amazing and are built by Brembo in Italy, so they should be quality pieces. Unfortunately, the crossover tube on the passenger side caliper was damaged from shipping. Either it was damaged in transit from Italy to my Mopar dealer, or from my Mopar dealer to me. Ultimately, the crossover tube is bent and needs to be addressed. There are a few ways to tackle this problem. Upon closer inspection, the crossover tube is made of steel, only slightly kinked, and still permits flow. I can still run it, and who would know the difference? Well, being lazy, negligent, and not actually fixing the problem will eventually present itself when the Challenger crashes at the track due to uneven braking from high speeds. So this is never a wise choice. I could have contacted my Mopar dealer and filed a claim against the shipper to get another caliper, but I had already pulled the crossover tube off and that would have to be explained as to why, leading to more wasted time. Also, yes, the crossover tube is damaged, but the caliper is perfectly fine. So I'd just be playing hot potato, passing this problem on to the next guy. Not really a valid solution. The way I see it is life presented me with a specific puzzle and has tasked me to solve it. So I'm up for the challenge. I tried contacting Brembo, but apparently it is impossible to get a replacement crossover tube from them, as they would rather sell you an entire caliper assembly instead. The next best solution is to fabricate a crossover tube myself. I mean, it's just a simple tube. How hard could it be? Some research on a Viper forum yielded that a few of those guys have had this dilemma for years. They solved it on early Viper calipers using a $5 crossover tube sourced from any local auto parts store. The part number is PAE-308. Be careful with going this route, as some auto parts employees are not very knowledgeable and will give you the brake line with wrong ends. The only issue with this solution is that the plastic spacer between the fittings will be missing. Since this is a customer car, I want the caliper to have the spacer there due to aesthetic reasons, as it won't look the same as the driver's side. The plastic spacer missing is fine for some, but will not cut it for our applications. Now, I could always take the crossover tube to a local specialty plumbing shop to have them fashion a brand new replacement, or I could purchase the tools needed to fabricate it on my own. As always, I chose a more difficult, expensive path and opted to make this damn crossover tube myself. A little more internet research revealed that the tool I needed was for a 4.75mm DIN single flare, commonly known as a mushroom tip, and then the port on the caliper is size 10mm. Many inexpensive eBay kits or Chinese tools are available, but what caught my eye is a brake flare set from England made by a company named Sykes Pickavant. Primetools.co.uk is one of the best vendors of Sykes Pickavant's products and had the best price. Luckily, Sykes Pickavant does make a kit that has only the 4.75mm die that I need and is much cheaper than the Master Kit. So I picked up the Master's Kit instead. These tools are 100% made in the UK and are designed to be used in a vise. Ordered the tools, which eventually showed up. In order to complete the job properly, I needed to get 3/16 brake line as well as a short radius tube bender. 1/2-inch deep sockets and a vise works well. So here's what I did so far. I cut and sectioned the old crossover tube and straightened it out, removed all the pieces and put on a brand new piece of brake line. And when you straighten out the tube, you figure out the length of it. So it's about 8 3/4. The thing though is I didn't know at the time how much material the flare would use up. But with some testing, I figured out that it uses up about 1/8 of an inch on your brake line. So I did the math. I needed an 8 3/4 overall piece. That means you need to cut an 8 7/8 tube. I put all the fittings, both fittings and the plastic center section there, and fashioned my brake line. And now I just gotta bend it. I have an extra piece here if I fuck up the bends, but let's see how it goes. This brake flare tool is pretty simple to use. clamp it down onto your vise, load half of the die horizontally, throw your brake line onto there, load the other half on top, clamp it down, and then you choose which dial, which operation on the dial you need, and then lever the flare end face to compress the flare that you need, and that should be it. Die comes off, flare comes out nice. The distance on the crossover ports on the caliper is about 5 inches. Since I have an 8 3/4 brake line, minus 5 inches it leaves 3 3/4. Divide that by 2 is about 1 3/8. So that's where I'll bend my brake lines. So here I'm just using a socket as a short radius to bend this brake line by hand. Coming out pretty good. So here's my progress on the crossover tube that I bent. I took my time and went really slow. I didn't want to force anything, but took a lot of tries, but I just bent it to where it looks good. You want to make sure you hand thread the fittings onto the ports so you don't strip the threads. But yeah, looks pretty good. Now I know the original finish of the Brembo Viper calipers is black powder coat, so I'll have to get some gloss black powder coating materials in a heat gun in order to finish the job properly. That'll have to be for another video. What's paramount is the braking system is fully functional, that there are no kinks or weaknesses to it, and that it doesn't leak. The purpose of this video is not to display the Challenger's fancy brakes or show off all the expensive tools that I bought. The moral of the story is rather to always step outside your comfort zone in order to grow. I didn't plan on spending all this money on brake lines, but now we have the ability to fabricate complete brake systems for entire cars and modify them as needed, making the shop even more productive. Life will always present you with problems, but it's up to you how to solve them, and to me, that's part of the grand beauty of it all. It's the little obstacles and figuring them out that makes life worth living. One last thing, the PAE 308 line we recommended earlier will not work on late model Viper calipers as it's too short. It's best just to cut up a longer line and bend as needed. Alright guys, that's it for us. We're Rowless Productions. Catch you guys later.